Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at mindfulness. We'll be exploring it with excerpts from Mindfulness in Plain English
Oh, yeah.
by Bhante Gunaratana. And we're hoping that by looking at these excerpts, we can give you a little shortcut to understanding what mindfulness is and how to actually practice it.
Definitely.
And we'll be talking about some things that might actually surprise you about what mindfulness is not.
Yeah. A lot of misconceptions out there.
Exactly. So what do you think? Ready to dive in?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. So one of the things I think is really interesting about this book is how it really demystifies meditation and mindfulness.
Absolutely.
It
It gets right to the point.
yeah.
It's really accessible,
Yeah.
even if you've never even thought about this stuff before.
Right. Like one of the things that really stood out to me is how the author debunks all those common misconceptions about meditation. We're not talking about, you know, chanting mantras or
That's
contorting
stuff.
yourself into weird positions or,
Yeah, levitating.
yeah, exactly. Like trying to achieve some mystical trance-like state.
I think what's so cool about this book is that it really highlights,
Mhm.
like there are no colored belts in mindfulness.
Oh, yeah.
He actually says that.
Yeah.
And I love that because it's not about achieving some sort of spiritual mastery or anything like that. It's really about those simple, practical techniques for training your mind.
I think a lot of people get turned off by mindfulness because they just have this preconceived notion of what it is.
I agree.
Like they picture monks sitting on mountaintops or something.
Yeah, and that can be intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can make people feel like, oh, this is not for me.
What's so fascinating about this book, though, is that it really strips away all that mystique. And it presents mindfulness as something that anyone can do
Right.
anywhere, anytime.
Okay, so we've busted a few myths, but like let's get to the heart of it here. Why should someone even bother with mindfulness?
Yeah, good question.
Like what's in it for me?
This is where it gets really interesting, I think. The book talks about how most of us are living in a state of, like, quiet desperation.
Oh, yeah.
Like we're going through the motions, we're seeking happiness in external things, possessions, achievements, relationships.
Right.
But there's this underlying sense of dissatisfaction.
Oh, yeah, I've definitely felt that. Like you're constantly chasing the next thing, thinking that's what will finally make me happy, but it never quite does.
Exactly. And the book actually points out how this if-only syndrome is so pervasive
Mm.
in our culture. We're bombarded with messages
Right.
that tell us we need more, more, more to be happy.
So how does mindfulness address this? Like what's the alternative to this constant striving?
Well, mindfulness offers a way to break free from that cycle.
Okay.
See, it's not about adding more to your life. It's about seeing what's already there with more clarity. It's about learning to be present in this moment without judgment, experiencing life as it unfolds.
So the book calls this vipassana, which it defines as insight meditation. But what does that actually mean?
Well, think of it this way. Imagine seeing a beautiful flower. What we typically do is we project our own ideas of beauty onto it.
Right.
We see it through the filter of our thoughts and concepts.
Right.
Vipassana is about stripping away those filters and seeing that flower as it truly is, in all its uniqueness.
I thought the example in the book about the dog barking at night
Oh, yeah,
was really powerful.
that one's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of simply experiencing the sound of the barking, we immediately react with annoyance, frustration,
Oh.
even judgment towards the dog or the owner.
It's like our minds instantly create this whole story around the sound rather than just like hearing the
Totally.
sound itself.
That's what we do with pretty much every experience. We're constantly filtering things through our thoughts, our judgments, preconceived notions.
Right.
Vipassana, or mindfulness, helps us break free from all that mental chatter and experience reality more directly.
But isn't that like some kind of special ability? Like you need to be some sort of Zen master to do that.
Not at all. And that's what's so great about this book. It really emphasizes that mindfulness is a skill.
Okay.
You can cultivate it through practice,
Mhm.
just like you learn to play an instrument or speak a new language. Anyone can learn it.
I like that. Okay, I'm intrigued. So how do we actually start developing this mindfulness muscle?
The book uses a great analogy to explain this.
Okay.
It compares the mind to a glass of muddy water.
Okay, I can picture that. My mind definitely feels pretty muddy sometimes.
Right. We're bombarded with information, thoughts, and emotions all day long. It's no wonder our minds feel chaotic. But think about what happens when you let that muddy water sit for a while. The dirt settles. The water becomes clear.
So meditation is like letting the muddy water of our minds settle.
Precisely. Meditation is the practice of training our minds to become still and clear. It's not about emptying the mind of thoughts. It's about learning to observe them without getting swept away by them.
So you're saying anyone can train their mind like this
Yeah.
to become clear and
And
focused.
anyone. That's the beauty of it.
I like the sound of that. But how do you actually do it?
Yeah.
What does this practice look like?
That's where the book really shines. It doesn't just talk about mindfulness in these abstract terms.
Okay.
It gives you clear, practical instructions on how to meditate. Chapters 5 and 8 were particularly helpful for me, especially the sections on posture and breathing.
I was curious about those chapters too. What did you learn about posture? I always thought you had to sit in some complicated lotus position to meditate.
Another misconception, the book tackles it head on.
Okay.
It turns out you don't need to be a yoga master to meditate. The most important thing is to find a posture that allows you to be alert and relaxed. A straight spine is key,
Okay.
but you can sit comfortably in a chair if that works better for you.
So no need to twist myself into a pretzel.
No.
That's good to know. And what about breathing? How does that play into meditation?
Well, the breath is like an anchor for the mind.
Oh.
The book suggests starting with some simple counting techniques to focus your attention, but it's not about becoming a master breath counter.
Right.
The goal is to use the breath as a tool to develop concentration and awareness. As you become more familiar with the practice, your awareness will naturally shift to the subtle sensations of the breath itself.
It's about using the breath to train your attention.
Exactly. It's like a gentle way of guiding your mind back to the present moment whenever it wanders off,
Which, let's be honest,
which it will,
it will do a lot.
a lot.
Speaking of wandering minds, how do you deal with all the distractions that inevitably come up? My mind is like a wild monkey sometimes,
Ah, the monkey mind.
swinging from thought to thought.
We all experience that.
Yeah.
The book has a lot of helpful advice on dealing with distractions. But the most important takeaway for me
Okay.
was the idea of acceptance.
Acceptance. You mean just let those thoughts run wild?
Not exactly. It's more about acknowledging those thoughts without judgment. Instead of getting caught up in a tug of war with your mind, you simply notice those thoughts and gently guide your attention back to your breath.
Okay.
There's a great analogy in the book about a farmer looking for his lost buffalo.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. He knows they'll eventually come to the watering hole, so he waits there patiently, instead of chasing after them all over the field.
Exactly. It's a brilliant metaphor for how we can work with distractions in meditation. Instead of fighting against them, we can simply observe them and let them pass, knowing that our attention will eventually return to its focal point.
I love that analogy. It makes the whole process seem much less daunting.
Right. And the book doesn't sugarcoat things either. It acknowledges that meditation can be challenging, especially when you first start out.
Okay.
Chapter 10 dives into some common obstacles you might encounter, like pain, drowsiness, and boredom.
Oh, those all sound pretty relatable. I've definitely experienced all three at some point during meditation. What kind of guidance does the book offer for dealing with those challenges?
It offers some really insightful strategies.
Okay.
For instance, with physical pain, the book suggests a rather radical approach,
Okay.
merging with the pain to become free from it.
Merging with the pain. That sounds a bit counterintuitive.
It is.
How does that work?
It's about shifting your relationship to the discomfort. Instead of resisting or trying to push the pain away, you allow yourself to fully experience the sensations without judgment. The book explains that by doing so, the suffering associated with the pain actually diminishes.
Interesting. So it's not about trying to make the pain go away. It's about changing how you relate to it.
Exactly.
What about drowsiness? I've definitely nodded off a few times during meditation.
We've all been there. The book offers some mindfulness techniques to counteract sleepiness, like focusing on the sensations of your posture, or gently opening your eyes. The key is to bring a gentle awareness to the experience of drowsiness, without judging yourself for feeling sleepy.
It's like using mindfulness as a tool to investigate those mental states,
Exactly.
rather than just trying to force them away. And even boredom can be approached in a similar way.
Yeah. The book encourages us to explore the feeling of boredom itself as a mental state, which I found surprisingly insightful.
Yeah, it's like turning those challenges into opportunities for deeper self-awareness. It's not about achieving some blissful state of perfection, but about learning to be present with whatever arises, even the uncomfortable stuff.
Exactly. And this practice of being present extends beyond our formal meditation practice.
Okay.
The book emphasizes the importance of bringing mindfulness into
Yeah.
our everyday lives.
That's what I was hoping for. I was really interested in chapter 15, which talks about practicing mindfulness in daily life. It mentions things like walking meditation, doing activities in slow motion, and finding stolen moments to be mindful. Can you tell me more about those?
Sure, walking meditation is a great way to bring mindfulness into a simple, everyday activity. The book instructs you to walk slowly and deliberately,
No.
paying close attention to the sensations of your feet touching the ground, the movement of your body, the feeling of the air on your skin. It's like turning a regular walk into a moving meditation.
That sounds really peaceful. I can see how that would be a nice way to de-stress after a long day. What about these slow motion activities? What are those all about?
It's about bringing a heightened awareness to even the most mundane tasks. Like imagine you're drinking a cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just gulping it down mindlessly, you slow down and savor each sip. You notice the aroma, the warmth of the cup in your hand, the subtle flavors on your tongue. It's about turning an ordinary activity into an exercise in mindfulness.
I love that. It's like finding little pockets of peace throughout the day. And what about those stolen moments? What are some examples of those?
Stolen moments are those little gaps in our day
Yeah.
that we often waste scrolling through our phones
Yeah.
or getting lost in thought.
Yeah.
Things like waiting in line, commuting to work, even washing dishes can become opportunities to practice mindfulness.
It's like retraining your mind to be present
Right.
instead of constantly getting pulled away by distractions.
And the beauty of it is that you don't need to set aside these huge chunks of time to practice. You can integrate mindfulness into your daily life
Wow.
in these subtle ways. And those little moments can have a big impact over time.
This is all starting to make so much sense. But I'm still curious about the bigger picture. What are the long-term benefits of cultivating mindfulness? Does it really make a difference in how we experience life?
That's a great question. And the book offers a very compelling answer. It's not just about feeling calm during meditation. It's about transforming the way we experience life itself.
It sounds like mindfulness isn't just about like finding inner peace. It's about like changing how we interact
Absolutely.
with the world around us, right?
The book really emphasizes that mindfulness cultivates not just peace, but also qualities like wisdom and compassion.
Okay.
It's like those qualities naturally unfold as you become more present and aware.
That's fascinating. Can you elaborate on that a bit? How does mindfulness lead to more wisdom and compassion?
Well, think about that muddy water analogy again. As that mud settles, you start to see things more clearly. You're less reactive, less caught up in the drama of your own thoughts and emotions. This clarity allows you to make wiser choices and respond to situations with more understanding and compassion.
So instead of getting swept away by anger or frustration, you're able to step back and see the situation more objectively.
Exactly. And that ability to see things clearly extends to how we perceive other people. We become less judgmental, more understanding of their perspectives and motivations. This naturally leads to more compassion and empathy.
It sounds like mindfulness is about more than just personal growth then. It has the potential to impact our relationships and interactions with others
Absolutely.
in a positive way.
And the book makes a really important point about how mindfulness helps us deal with difficult emotions,
Okay.
like greed, hatred, and jealousy.
That's something I've always struggled with. Those negative emotions can feel so overwhelming sometimes. How does mindfulness help with that?
Well, instead of trying to suppress or deny those emotions, mindfulness encourages us to observe them with a curious and non-judgmental attitude. The book explains that by simply acknowledging these emotions, by seeing their impermanent nature, we naturally begin to let them go.
That makes sense. It's like you're taking away their power by simply observing them without getting caught up in the story they're
Right.
trying to tell you.
It's a very different approach from what we usually do, which is to either indulge in those negative emotions
Uh-huh.
or try to push them away.
Right.
Mindfulness offers a middle path, a way to be with those emotions without letting them control us.
This all ties back to something we talked about earlier, the relationship between mindfulness and concentration.
Yeah.
Chapter 14 kind of delves into that connection, right?
Yes, the book explains that mindfulness and concentration work hand in hand. Concentration helps us focus our attention, while mindfulness allows us to observe the quality of that focus.
I remember the book uses the analogy of a stone Buddha to illustrate this point. What was that about again?
It's about finding the right balance. Someone might be able to concentrate very deeply, like a statue,
Okay.
but without the awareness and insight that mindfulness brings, that concentration can become rigid and inflexible.
So you could be like super focused on something, but completely miss the bigger picture or
Exact.
the subtleties of the situation.
On the other hand, if you're constantly bombarded with stimulation and information, you might struggle to find the stillness and focus necessary for deeper understanding.
So it's like finding that sweet spot
Mm,
between being completely zoned out
yeah,
and being completely overwhelmed.
exactly. And the book reassures us that finding that balance is all part of the journey. It's
Yeah.
not about achieving some perfect state of mindfulness. It's about continuing to practice and refine your awareness over time.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. It's made me realize that mindfulness is so much more than just a trendy buzzword.
I agree.
It's a profound practice with the potential to transform our lives in so many ways.
I completely agree.
And mindfulness in plain English is such a valuable guide for anyone who wants to explore this path.
Absolutely.
And I love how the book doesn't just leave you with information. It invites you to continue exploring on your own. There's a question at the end that really stuck with me.
Okay.
It says, what would your life look like if you could observe your thoughts and emotions without getting swept away by them?
That's such a powerful question to ponder,
Yeah.
isn't it? It invites us to imagine a life where we're not at the mercy of our reactive minds, a life where we have more choice in how we respond to whatever arises.
It's like opening up a whole new world of possibilities. So for anyone listening who's intrigued by what we've discussed today, I highly encourage you to check out Mindfulness in Plain English. It's a gift to yourself, a journey well worth taking.
I agree.
All right, that's all for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us and happy exploring.
Happy exploring.
Did you get any of that?